Yeah, and this is Michael Schumacher's 133rd Grand Prix. He has won 39 of them, only 2 less than the great Ayrton Senna, whose points total he has already succeeded beaten to become the 2nd highest in history. And the Monaco Grand Prix is... Go! Schumacher gets away. Trulli slots in front of David Coulthard. Is maintained with Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 4th position, but Mika Häkkinen is still in 5th position, so there is no change as they climb up to the Hotel de Paris, round Massenet, the left-hander, through Casino Square.
Yes, everybody got away very poorly, and I'm not surprised. The red light was on for so long there. The red light seemed to be forever going out, and I'm sure all the drivers were champing at the bit there. It's unusual. Normally it's just over 3 seconds and it's away. And there's Häkkinen making a good move on Frentzen. Red flag.
Well,
I think the computer is out, Murray. I think that's probably why it's a red flag. Well, there's no data come up. They've gone...
Oh, look at that. Well, this is the worst possible thing that could happen at Monaco. First of all, we get an aborted start. Then we get the computer sticking and the race restarted again. Now we've got this kerfuffle. And let's have a look and see what it's the 2 arrows, you see. That's Jos Verstappen in the orange arrows, who was nerfed from the inside there.
By Button, I think it was Jenson Button gave him a little tap on the back wheel there as they went into Grand Hairpin there. So, but we've got no data on the computer at all as they've gone through the various sectors on this lap, and I suspect there's been some kind of power failure. Certainly the red flag was out long before this little car park.
Well, the whole of Formula One, like the whole of our lives these days, seems to be controlled by computers. The cars trip a computer mechanism as they cross the line so that we all get their times and the gaps in between. And in many ways, the old way was the best, but not here today.
Well, they're going to have to send men out with starters. They can't haul all of those cars off the track. They'll have to switch the cars off. They'll be fried in about a minute, which they've already had much more than parked there at Grand Hotel Hairpin. Nobody got away well. I think everybody was surprised just how long the red light stayed on. Ralph, a reasonable start there, but sort of general chaos. They did well to all get through the first corner, but if they're still down there at the Grand Hairpin, they'll have to switch the engines off, and they can't just crane them off the circuit. They'll have to send men out there with starters, I would have thought.
Well, if Jarno Trulli was a bit nervous, you thought before, Martin, he's going to be even more nervous now as we look at him sitting in the Jordan in the 2nd position on the grid. Michael Schumacher, of course, has been there, done that, whatever it is in Formula One. And he's a very cool, calm, collected customer anyway. Well, there is the Jordan being... This is the 3rd time that a Jordan has been involved in a real happening this year, because Pedro de la Rosa went into the barrier very heavily this morning.
That looks a bit like an Arrows to me, but here's the car park that we were talking about, and they've switched them all off. They had to, as I said, the engines will just melt, and I really think they should allow the mechanics out there to start those cars up.
David Coulthard climbing over the barrier. Yes, I'm sorry, an orange Arrows that was being craned off the circuit. And the Arrows team has had a very tough time here altogether, because Verstappen's been off. You can see the blower there pushing cold air, because there's an ice box there as well, pushing cold air into the engine compartment of Schumacher's Ferrari.
Welcome back. Well, as you can see, the carnage has been cleared, but Jonesy, some confusion about the restart, because this will be restart number 3.
Well, what happens, Daz, under the rules is that if a car stalls on the grid, they decrease the amount of laps by 1 for allowing for that extra warm-up lap. If the race has done less than 2 laps, it is then deemed to be a completely fresh start with the original amount of laps to be done, and Wirtz, for instance, now can go back to his original grid position.
Okay. So you see Mick Häkkinen there. Just interesting, while we're in that break, I was listening to Martin Brundle. He was talking about the Jaguars, and they're very worried about starting here because they've been having a lot of clutch problems, and this will be the 3rd start the Jaguars have had. So they're very worried about it.
Yeah, well, because, as we were saying, the cars are producing somewhere around 800 horsepower. The clutches that these cars have got are only not much bigger than a saucepan, basically. So they're not really designed, you know, they don't like doing 3 serious starts like that, and the Jaguar clutch is a bit marginal anyway, so they are probably a little bit worried about that.
Well, as you can see, chaos all over the place there on the grid. So we'll take a break, come back. Hopefully we'll get away for a clean start. Start number 3 coming away. Stay with us. Okay, welcome back to Cars. Back on the circuit now. Start number 3 coming away. AJ, this has been a dead set cock-up. I mean, we do not know what's going on. They've said that these cars will go back onto the grid in their slot because of the way the rule book reads. Then we thought they'd go to the rear of the grid. Now we find out they're going to start from pit lane. I mean, nobody knows what's going on in this thing.
No, I give up, I tell you. Because, I mean, I was led to believe they were going back to the original slots. If they don't go back to the original slots, I can't believe why they're not starting at the back of the grid. So, anyway, let's hope we get a nice, clean start now without the first corner shunt.
What I say about a great place to race is Murray.
McLaren behind Schumacher is David Coulthard.
Yes, and these clutches are just about the size of your fist now on a Formula 1 car. They're not really designed for a lot of restarts. This is putting them absolutely on the limit.
1 light, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and... Come on, out! Go! Schumacher good again. Charlie Trilly good again. And Frentzen slots in front of Hakkinen, so the grid positions have been maintained. Are they going to get round Sandervot? Yes, I think they are. Schumacher leads. Trilly, Coulthard, Frentzen, Mika Hakkinen into Massenet, into the Casino Square. Now they're coming up to the point where we had problems at the station hairpin. They turn into the Mirabeau, drop down towards the station hairpin, and this is it.
Yes, Ralf Schumacher, the main mover there. Ralf Schumacher getting a good start for the second time, and I think he has catapulted past John Alesi. Barrichello there behind Alesi, so Barrichello a poor start.
Yeah, Barrichello only qualified 6th on the grid. He's been passed by the mercurial Jean Alesi in the frost. Up into 6th position, a potential points position, but we've still got 77 laps and a bit to go as they come down to the chicane for the first time with Michael Schumacher in the lead. Jarno Trulli is still there. David Coulthard treading on his gearbox, and they stream through. Absolutely critical this into the swimming pool section. They approach it at some 100 miles an hour. And this is the Rascasse, and look at the gap already between Schumacher and Trulli.
Yes, critical there for Michael Schumacher. He needed Jarno Trulli to get away in front of Coulthard. That's going to give Schumacher such a breathing space, unless Coulthard can do something about Trulli in these early laps. Otherwise, you just settle into a rhythm. But he's got to take such a risk to get past him. He needs the championship points, but he also needs to try and win this motor race. And he's got to keep some pressure on Michael Schumacher if he can. And look at the lead Schumacher's got.
Yeah, the worry man is Mika Hakkinen. Worry because he's worried. He's in 5th position. He did not make up any places at the start. Look, he's still locked in behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen as Schumacher leads and is increasing the gap between himself and Jarno Trulli. And Mika Hakkinen is looking all the time as he comes down to the station hairpin for a wave round Heinz-Harald Frentzen as...
And if he does that too many times, he'll lose his nose cone, Murray, and then he'll be a half a minute behind him when he stops to have that change, or worse still, lose a front wishbone. So Hakkinen there having a bit of a wild stab up the inside of Frentzen having nothing of it into the hairpin there, and it's so difficult. You've got to be so focused on your piece of road that staring in your mirrors through there, watching out for people trying to overtake you, is just not on the agenda.
And Ralf Schumacher is in 6th position. Jenson Button, who started in the pit lane, is in 19th position. And there is Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar, who has been passed by his teammate Johnny Herbert. Johnny Herbert was 11th on the grid behind Irvine. He's now 10th in the race ahead of Eddie Irvine. So there is Trulli, there is Coulthard, and Michael Schumacher is disappearing from sight as they go through. But it's very, very close behind them. Michael Schumacher, as Hakkinen is looking again at Frentzen coming up towards Sandervot. But The German Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Jordan Mugen, which is going so well here, knows this course very well indeed. He lives in Monaco, as does Mika Häkkinen, and he knows that if he places his car correctly, it's going to be virtually impossible for the Finn to get by. And now Mika Häkkinen is 5 seconds behind Schumacher.
Yes, possibly Häkkinen's car is a little bit lighter to try and get him through the traffic early on. But one thing's for sure, he's certainly got a faster car and he can't do anything with it at the moment. I was wrong about Denitz not starting. He's in 14th place, but Button and Wirtz did start in the pit lane, then 18th and 19th, as you've already said, Mary, and De La Rosa is the only one actually not in the race. So 21 runners at the moment.
Through the tunnel, into the chicane, there is Ralf Schumacher. And you can see the gap between himself and Mika Häkkinen, and it's not very much. As Jean Alesi follows Schumacher in 7th position, ahead of Rubens Barrichello, who has lost 2 places. Very disappointing for the Ferrari driver, because he qualified in 6th place. He was fastest in this morning's warm-up, declared himself happy with the handling and the balance of the Ferrari, but never, in spite of that, he has lost 2 places in this race. And losing them is not too difficult. Getting them back is mighty difficult.
Yes, just to remind you why Häkkinen's down there. He had a poor first run in qualifying, and then traffic really for the next 2, and a fairly mediocre last effort, still struggling a little bit with traffic. So Häkkinen lucky in a way to qualify 5th, but it's compromised his afternoon. And look, Michael Schumacher, as we thought, scampering away, a well over 3.5 second lead already.
And remember, Michael Schumacher's already won 4 of the 6 races this year, with the declared objective of taking Ferrari back to the top in terms of winning the Drivers' Championship, which they have not done since Jody Scheckter did so for them in 1979. It's been a long, long haul, and there's news from James Allen.
Yes, this is just what McLaren feared, not least because they got Jarno Trulli in front of him, but more importantly, he's the only one of the leading gaggle that's on the super soft tyres. And what we've seen throughout the weekend is that they go off, they understeer terribly between the 2nd and the 7th laps of running. So this is going to mean that Trulli's going to hold them up even more, while Schumacher is able to pull away. It's exactly what McLaren didn't want for that reason.
You can see how close it is, and here are the top 10 on lap 4 out of 78. Schumacher leading by 3.5 seconds. Jarno Trulli is 2nd, half a second ahead of David Coulthard. And there they are. 4th is Frentzen, 5th is Häkkinen, 6th is Ralf Schumacher, 7th is Jean Alesi, 8th is Rubens Barrichello, 9th is Fisichella, Johnny Herbert is 10th, and Eddie Irvine in the 2nd Jaguar is in 11th position. Jenson Button is still down in 19th position. Coming up the hill towards us, it's Frentzen and Häkkinen and Schumacher and Alesi, and then Barrichello. Here is Michael Schumacher, 4 times a winner at Monaco.
Yes, and his car's been so reliable. When you think back, other than that brake problem in Silverstone last year, I think the last time Michael Schumacher's car failed him and had any kind of engine blow-up was in Melbourne 1998. So we know he's got a super reliable car. We also know that Jordans tend to run a very big fuel tank, and they tend to run very long. So they're sitting quite pretty at the moment. Häkkinen, if anything, just falling slightly away from Frentzen. Don't know if he made a mistake on the last lap, but Häkkinen not exactly carrying Frentzen. He's 9/10 of a second down.
Well, Frentzen was 4th last year, and he came in on lap 57. Here he is coming towards us. Häkkinen can do nothing about him, nor can Ralf Schumacher, Alesi, Barrichello, Fisichella, Johnny Herbert you just saw coming towards us in the Jaguar, and we're on lap 5, still an enormous distance to go. The crowd has settled down. It's very hot indeed. As I talk to you, the track temperature remains at 40 degrees as the leaders round the Rascasse. Now, Schumacher is putting up fastest lap after fastest lap. He's just gone round in 1 minute 24.3. The fastest lap last year was 2 laps quicker. Mika Häkkinen.
Dream scenario for Michael. He took 1.5 seconds out of the opposition on the last lap, 2 seconds out of Frentzen. So Michael with the track to himself, the car working beautifully. He's just enjoying himself. He, as far as he's concerned, there's nobody else around this afternoon. It's a private test at the moment.
Yeah, and it's not as though he is a new boy. Far from it. He made his first sparkling appearance in 1991 at the Belgian Grand Prix, driving for Eddie Jordan. That lasted 1 race before he was snaffled by Benetton. So he's very much a veteran now, and 4 times the winner here.
Well, Coulthard's got to get closer than that to have any chance of overtaking Truly, but then he's really got 2.5 opportunities. One's coming out of the tunnel into the new chicane, the other is after the casino down into Mirabeau. If Truly, he's got to wear Truly down, or you can have a very wild stab up the inside into Grand Hairpin, but there's a good 50-50 chance that one will end in tears.
Michael Schumacher nearly 6 seconds ahead of the yellow Jordan there of Jarno Trulli. You can see how close David Coulthard is, but then Frentzen is 3.5 seconds behind Coulthard's McLaren. Out of the Antonino corner, up towards Sandervot they come. Frentzen has got Hakkinen snapping at his gearbox, but the Finn can do nothing about it. Ralf Schumacher coming up the hill towards us in the BMW is in 6th position. But this race is a long, long way from being finished. We're on lap 7 now, another 71 laps to go.
Yes, Coulthard wasn't able to run this car in the warm-up. It failed, so he had to run in the T car, and he was still making adjustments to it on the grid, even after the reconnaissance laps to go round to the grid. So it seems to be working well, but obviously he can't move with the Jordan in front of him.
Now this is the sort of drive I've been waiting for a long time to see Jarno Trulli have the opportunity to have. He was absolutely brilliant in karts. He went straight from karts to Formula 3, and he was the German Formula 3 champion, which may seem a bit odd for an Italian, but that was the series he was driving, and there's Michael Schumacher leading. And Jarno Trulli won the German championship and then went up to the Minardi team. He actually led the Austrian Grand Prix 3 years ago in one of his first drives for the Prost team, and now he's in a car that can at minimum give him second position if he stays where he is. But I'm also asking myself, how much longer can the two Ferraris go on being as reliable as they have been? As you heard from Martin, it's over 30 races since Michael Schumacher went out with any kind of a mechanical function.
Yes, now McLaren have to get their thinking caps on, because it's clear, whilst they've got faster cars than the Jordans at this stage of the race, they have not got enough extra speed to just breeze past them. So now what they're going to have to do is change their strategy and find a gap in the back markers, and this is assuming the Jordan drivers don't make a mistake, but they're both young, strong and very fit, so they're going to have to find a gap in the traffic where they can stop their man early, give him some free air, and see if they can leapfrog the Jordans that way, because as I said, unless Coulthard can pressurise Trulli into some kind of error, he's not got enough traction or straight line speed to simply breeze past.
Which is the sort of thing that happened in the Ferrari team last year. They finished first and second last year. Michael Schumacher won in 1999. His teammate Eddie Irvine was second. And it was largely thanks to the fact that Ross Brawn, the Ferrari technical chief, changed Eddie Irvine's strategy during the race, and he was the only one of the top 6 who stopped twice, because he came in as late as lap 56, and as a result of that, and the fact that Mika Hakkinen had a problem at the Mirabeau and stopped and had to get back onto the track again, Eddie Irvine finished in second position. So there is the Jordan, followed by the McLaren, and that is Ralf Schumacher. So Frentzen and Hakkinen up the hill towards the Macedon.
Yes, yet another new fastest lap of the race as Michael Schumacher extends his lead, as you saw, to 8.4 seconds after just 8 laps. That means he's going to be, if the McLarens can't spring it, means Michael's going to be, assuming he's on a one-stopper, which I'd be very surprised if he's not, then he's going to be cruising up behind this lot at some point later in the afternoon.
Well, I worked it out earlier on that we could expect the leader, who I was expected to be Michael Schumacher, to lap the last man, who at the present moment is Nick Heidfeld, after about 21 laps. Now we're on lap 8 at the present moment. There was roughly a 4-second gap between the fastest and the slowest in the warm-up, the half-hour warm-up this morning. And now you can see that Michael Schumacher is carving his way through the field. Just the one retirement so far, Pedro de la Rosa in the Arrows, who actually did not get away.
You're on board with David Coulthard. You're running third in this Grand Prix this afternoon. And as you can see, all he's got is a face full of Jordan rear wing. And what would be so easy for Coulthard to do is, on a corner like he's just gone round, just to clump the barrier, just turn in a fraction too early while you're slightly unsighted, and it'll just spin you around and pendulum around, and it's so easy to do. do when you're focused on the car ahead of you.
And this is a perfect indication of the fact that it is of paramount importance to qualify well at Monaco. If you qualify well and get a good start, you get the situation that we've got now, because the pole position man is leading. The man who was second on the grid is second. The man who was third on the grid is third. The man who was fourth on the grid, and it's him, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, is fourth, and Mika Häkkinen is fifth, as we ride with David Coulthard chasing Jarno Trulli into the Portier, where Senna went off in 1988, into the tunnel and through the tunnel, and they go through this tunnel and exit it at over 160, building up to 180 miles an hour, as Jos Verstappen exits the tunnel and goes across the chicane.
Yes, I was just about to say, amazingly, from the middle of the pack, Jos Verstappen's just done the fastest time of anybody in the race through the midsection. Now I know why. He basically leapt across the chicane. He may or may not get penalised. The stewards will have a look and see if he got some kind of advantage, either made a place or retained a place by doing that, and I don't think Verstappen will have a problem on that one.
No, I don't think so. He was 2 seconds ahead of Deniz in the Sauber, who is in 14th position. So lap 11, we're exactly 1/7 of the way through the Monaco Grand Prix. Schumacher's now leading by nearly 11 seconds with another fastest lap. Lap after lap, Michael Schumacher is extending his lead over Jarno Trulli. There is the Jordan, followed by David Coulthard's McLaren. Then there is a gap of 3 seconds before the Frentzen and Häkkinen battle arrives, followed by Ralf Schumacher, who is a second behind Häkkinen. Alesi is still 7th, Barrichello is still 8th, Fisichella 9th, Johnny Herbert is still ahead of Eddie Irvine, and Herbert is 10th.
Yes, Michael Schumacher's done a new fastest lap for the last 6 laps of this motor race. We all need Coulthard to pass that Jordan, if only to give us a race this afternoon, because Michael's just going to be running and hiding.
Well, this is a very, very long World Championship. This is race 7. There are 17 races in the championship, and remember what happened to Michael Schumacher at the British Grand Prix last year, when he had just lost the leadership of the World Championship to Mika Häkkinen. But at the present moment, Schumacher is running away with it. He's 18 points ahead of Mika Häkkinen, and Schumacher is on a possible 10 World Championship points at the moment. Häkkinen is on a possible 2 World Championship points at the moment. So if things stay as they are, and I don't suppose for a moment they will, Schumacher would be extending his lead over Mika Häkkinen by a further 8 points, and it would be looking very grim indeed. Now that is Johnny Herbert and Eddie Irvine just deciding he's not going to make the chicane, and I don't think he would suffer. I don't think Verstappen's going to, and I don't think Irvine will either.
Yes, it's very easy to take that decision to scamper across that no man's land. There should be big spikes in there that stops them going across it. It's too easy to take the soft option there.
Yeah, the lines, those red and white lines of the chicane, not at the hairpin there, but at the chicane, are just painted on the ground. There was a time when they actually had a raised wooden structure, and if you thumped that, you were in trouble with a puncture or a broken wheel or broken suspension. But they thought better of it. They just painted the lines on the track, and as you heard from Martin, if you cross the chicane, you benefit, that is, you pass a driver, you will be penalised. You can see they're running wide there quite deliberately, but if you just nip across and you don't gain from it, you are not penalised.
Yes, but if they perceive that you would have lost a place because of your misdemeanour, they nailed a Formula 3000 driver yesterday. Well, he didn't gain a place, but surely he'd made a mistake and managed to keep his place somehow, so he got a 10-second stop and go penalty, which with a 60 km/h, 40 miles per hour speed limit down the never-ending pit lane here is quite a penalty indeed.
And you're certainly not encouraged to do it regularly. So Mika Häkkinen will be a gigantically frustrated man. He's now 17 seconds behind his World Championship rival Michael Schumacher, tucked in behind Frentzen, with Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW confidently holding on to that 6th position and a points position. Now, where is Jenson Button in the other Williams? The answer is he's still in 19th position, because although he's riding underneath the rear wing of Gaston Mazzucato's Minardi, and this is the first time too that the Argentine driver has driven at Monaco, Mazzucati is not letting being buttoned through, and as I said earlier on, if you don't get some help from the driver in front, it's going to be virtually impossible to get past. So why, you may say, do they hold a motor race at a place like this if you cannot pass? Well, in fact, most of the Grand Prix circuits these days are very difficult to pass on. The performance of the cars is similar. They're all top drivers, and the big problem is an aerodynamic one.
Yes, but you've got to have different styles of racetrack. You can't, I mean, in the ideal world of safety and all of that sort of thing, you'd end up with a long straight and all the spectators 500 metres away looking through binoculars. You've got to have different types of circuit, test the drivers. The qualifying here plays a much bigger part than at normal racetracks, but it's all part of a very special weekend, a very specific kind of racetrack, and it should be in the calendar, no doubt about that.
Oh yes, absolutely. Magic. Now, we are not seeing much of Michael Schumacher because he is out on his own so much. He's 12 seconds ahead now. He's just done yet another fastest lap. He's streaking away with this race. His fastest lap, which he has just done, is 1 minute 23.6, which is 1.4 seconds slower than Mika Häkkinen's fastest lap last year. As a matter of interest, Michael Schumacher has the lap record here. It's as long ago as 1994 in the Benetton, which is a 3.5-litre engine device, and they're 3 litres these days, and that was 1:21. So he's about 2.5 seconds slower than his own all-time lap record as Frentzen, Häkkinen, Schumacher go through the chicane on lap 14 out of 78.
Yes, that was back in the days, though, Michael's fastest time when they had wide uncut
Big
slicks.
boots.
So and around a circuit like this, it makes a tremendous amount of difference.
So the swimming pool section, and Fisichella is putting on a bit of a charge now. He is in 9th position, tucked up behind Rubens Barrichello. Now Barrichello is 8th in the Ferrari, cannot get past Alesi's Prost, who cannot get past Schumacher's Williams, who cannot get past Mika Häkkinen's McLaren, and Mika Häkkinen is in 5th position. Fisichella closing up right on the rear wing of Barrichello's Ferrari.
I can't help but watch Häkkinen and think he's having another one of those days where he doesn't seem that interested. It's just a feeling you get on the season so far in some respects, and Mika, he just doesn't look really on it in his normal way there. He's falling away again from the back of Frentzen. In a way, though, I think that's what Coulthard should maybe do. Just back off a little bit, cool his tyres down, and come back and have another run at Trulli and try and distract him in that way. I think now they've settled into a rhythm, you just get in a trance following the car in front of you. You should really, I think if he just backs off a bit, cools the tyres, but then, you know, if they come up against back markers or Trulli makes a mistake, then he wouldn't be in a position to maximise on it. So yeah, it's a difficult decision.
And it's you can understand that the McLaren people are not bringing Coulthard in spite of the fact that he can't get past Trulli in front of him, because we're only on lap 16, and even if he was on a one-stop strategy and they decided to change it to 2, it would mean he'd be going out with a terrific fuel load and coming back into the race during traffic.
Well, yes, they're nowhere near the window for stopping. I would have thought the window to stop would be somewhere 38, 40 laps into the race through to 55, 56. So until we get, I would have thought, at least into the 40s, McLaren are hamstrung on any kind of tactics they can play.
Now, Schumacher knows that, Ferrari know that, McLaren know that, but they can do nothing about it. And Jordan will not be at all unhappy with this situation. Jordan have not been performing to their satisfaction this season so far. They were 3rd in the championship last year behind Ferrari and McLaren. This year they're down in 5th position, but behind Benetton. But if they stay where they are now, they will be moving up and probably getting past Williams, who are currently an unexpected 3rd.
I asked Trulli a question on the start line that I asked very specifically, did he think it would be more physically or mentally demanding? And he said both. I think he is one of the very fittest drivers physically in Formula 1, but I wonder if he was ready to take this sort of pressure. But 3 restarts, and on their 17th lap of the race, and truly shows no sign of bending whatsoever. But it's a long afternoon ahead of him.
He is gigantically fit. I mean, he's taking part in the upcoming New York Marathon. That's how fit he is. And he's also very fit mentally. I think we tend to lose sight of how long these drivers have all been racing in some kind of motorsport. For instance, Ralf Schumacher drove in karts for 14 years before he came up to Formula 3, and Ralf Schumacher's only 24 years old, and Jarno Trulli will be in much the same situation. Now we're looking at the McLaren chasing the Jordan.
Yes, now Trulli is very slow at the moment. He was 1.6 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher on the last lap, and that's allowing the pack, look, to catch them at well over a second a lap. Now Coulthard's going to get a hurry-up call, because he's soon going to have Frentzen, Hakkinen and Ralf Schumacher on his tail, and it's because Trulli just does not appear to have the pace of the others at this stage of the race.
With Michael Schumacher leading on lap 17 by 17 seconds. So he's been pulling away at the rate of a second a lap. And he's soon going to be in a situation where he can come in, stop, take on fuel and new tyres and get out still in the lead, which is a racing driver's dream of home. Michael Schumacher then 17 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli, who's got David Coulthard right behind him. There he is, David Coulthard. Frentzen is now catching David Coulthard. There is the Jordan, and behind him is Mika Hakkinen. So things are closing up nicely, and Mika Hakkinen is putting on a tremendous charge in 5th position. He's really pressuring Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Here he is, there is Frentzen now. There is Mika Hakkinen. They're going round the Massenet. So Jordan leads McLaren, Jordan leads McLaren, Ferrari leads the race, and Ralf Schumacher is 6th.
Yes, it looks like they've all sort of had a meeting and said, how can we make this as easy as possible for Ferrari to win this race, because it's just playing so much into Michael Schumacher's hands. He'll be grinning from ear to ear in the cockpit of the Ferrari at the moment, but as you've said before many times, Murray, anything can happen, and it often does.
Yeah, and into the pits comes the high wing Williams of Jenson Button from 21st position, so it looks as though he's going to be a retirement. He was 19th. And yeah, this is Button going out of the race. And that's a comparatively new experience for Jenson Button too. He failed to finish in Australia, and he failed to finish in Imola. And he's going to fail to finish from his first Monaco Grand Prix. What the problem was, I obviously don't know. So we now have 2 retirements on lap 19. The first De La Rosa in the Arrows, the second Jenson Button in the Williams. That leaves 20 drivers. Nobody has been lapped yet. Nick Heidfeld in the Frost is 20th and last of the runners at the present moment. And it is Trulli, Coulthard, Frentzen, Hakkinen.
It's a great shame for Jenson Button. Now, there's a lot of speculation, which we've covered, of course, that Montoya coming back from America, taking his seat at Williams next year. And just when you need some sparkling runs, he's just not been lucky. I think he's shown a lot of skill, a lot of maturity around here, but it's not been a great weekend. The last thing he needed was a first lap incident and then a retirement before he could really show any kind of skill around this, one of the most demanding racetracks in the world.
And you're absolutely right, Martin. Although it's happening very slowly, Coulthard is staying right behind Trulli, but Frentzen is catching Coulthard with Mika Hakkinen right behind him. So we're very soon, there is Frentzen, there is Mika Hakkinen, there is Ralf Schumacher, here is Jean Lacey in the chromium-plated helmet, and very soon we're going to... Oh, and out goes Alexander Wurz. Well, yet when things start to go wrong for you, they go wrong all the time. And we're going to get another indication here of how good the Monaco marshals are. They are absolutely terrific. Here is a replay of Alexander Wurz at Saint-Devote, losing control of the Benetton, going nose first into the barrier and feet first out of the race as he walks back. And Wurz was down in 17th position, so that lets Mazzacane up. Here is Mazzacane, followed by Marc Genet, now 19th, Nick Heidfeld in 20th position. You're looking at Jos Verstappen, followed by Pedro Diniz. They are 13th and 14th. And I'm just trying to work out, well, Michael Schumacher, and he is lapping about 1.6 seconds a lap slower than the Ferrari. So in another 10 laps or so, which is about where I expected it to be, the Ferrari is going to be lapping or coming up to lap height.
Yes, well, you saw truly going into the new chicane down at the beginning of the harbour as Michael Schumacher was leaving the harbour around the Raskas restaurant, heading in. He's just gone past our window down the pit straight, and the other guys are still around the swimming pool. So that's the kind of... We're about 4 or 5 laps, I would guess, at Michael having to start to lap people, and then shortly after that we should see Trulli and Coulthard in the same sort of situation. That might be a chance for Coulthard and indeed for Hakkinen to do something about the Jordans in front of them if they've got the speed.
Remember that in the last Grand Prix we had the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Mika Hakkinen made that absolutely incredible start from 3rd position and went straight between his teammate David Coulthard in pole position and Michael Schumacher, who was 2nd on the grid, to take the lead, although Michael Schumacher won the race. Well, here Mika Hakkinen started well down the field by his standards, because he was only 5th on the grid. He wasn't able to do anything about it at the start, and 5th is where he still is. An increasing margin behind Michael Schumacher, now nearly 25 seconds, with Schumacher continuing to lap at least half a second faster. He's now 21 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli, who is going well, and he needs to go well because David Coulthard is still right behind him. Hakkinen is still pressuring Frentzen. Ralf Schumacher is still hanging on there, and we're going to be waiting and waiting to see when they first come in for pit stops.
We're talking about truly in a marathon. Well, they're certainly in a marathon this afternoon. We're only just over quarter distance of the race, so tough afternoon. A long way to go, but it's pretty much stalemate at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I've said this before, I'll say it again, 800 horsepower, these cars. The drivers have got to be... This is Jos Verstappen, followed by Pedro Diniz, followed by Jacques Villeneuve, followed by Zonta. There is Mazzacane and Genet in the 2 Minardis, and Pedro Diniz leading that lot is in 14th position. I was saying, these drivers are superlatively fit, and there is absolutely, you'll know better than I do, Martin, heaven knows, but there is absolutely no respite at all at Monaco.
I think they're a bunch of wussies. We used to change gear 2,700 times around here with a stick and have blood pouring out of your hand at the end of the race. So it's made pretty easy for them in that respect, but for sure the pace is very hot.
Yeah, in those days you literally physically had to move the gear lever and coordinate the engine revs and the clutch to make sure that you didn't over-rev and blow the engine up. There is no danger of that happening now. Controlled by an who just pulls the paddle under the steering wheel, and everything is looked after for it.
Good grip out there at the moment. I think they've gone through that phase James was talking about, where the tyres lose a bit of grip and then start coming back to the drivers as they get nearer and nearer to slick conditions. Michael Schumacher with a new fastest lap of the race. There is the Minardi.
Genet, Mark Genet.
Yeah, sensibly. If he can just let it freewheel a little bit further, he'll be well out of the racetrack there, and the marshals can quite easily recover that car through the gap in the barrier there, so it'll be covered under yellows. No safety car, no pace car needed there.
Extremely expensive jewellery shop just to the left of where he's stopped. I suppose that'll interest him very much. David Coulthard plunging down and having a look to the side of Jarno Trulli's Jordan, who calmly moves across to the right and puts any idea of David Coulthard that he might nip through, which he wouldn't have done, out of his mind. And you can see that Ralf Schumacher is now in the Williams BMW 6th position, right on the tail of Mika Häkkinen's McLaren in 5th place. Here is race leader Michael Schumacher, and in the all-red look now, red Ferrari, red helmet.
The most frustrating thing about those slow corners when you're following a car very closely is the guy in front of you is guaranteed to be on the throttle a car length and a fraction ahead of you. You can't accelerate before he does, you'll run into him. So another Minardi going off at San Devot. Mazzacane, as you can see, so that'll be well and truly out of the race. Look, they've just been ripping wheels off all weekend. It's absolutely amazing how I don't know whether it's just the way they make the suspension now, but they've just been falling off so easily.
4 groove tyres, and there is Marc Genet out of the race. Now Mazzacane is out of the race, there he is. So it's an early bath for the Minardi team and their drive. So now we have got 17 cars left in the race, because De La Rosa is out, Button is out, Woods is out, Genet is out, Mazzacane is out. 17 left, only 8 finished last year.
55 laps remaining, and I've said it before over the years, but when they hang a pit board out and you see 55 laps to go, you cannot believe that you haven't done at least half distance. It seems the early stage of this race seems so long behind the wheel, and then it somehow speeds up as you move through the afternoon.
There's 4 seconds covering second to sixth at the present moment, 23 seconds first to second. That is a mark of the skill of Michael Schumacher. I've always said that if he gets into a car that is the equal of the McLaren, which he hasn't had in the past, heaven help us, because he'll be on his way, which is... And James Allen has got news from Ferrari.
Yes, it's amazing. I'm actually up on the timing wall here at Ferrari at Monaco. I don't stand in the garages, I come with the team up onto the wall, and I'm leaning pretty much just behind Ross Brawn's shoulder. And he said very little to Michael throughout this race. It really is something of a walk in the park for the German. He's now approaching the area where he's got the 26 seconds that he needs in order to make a stop and be able to rejoin ahead of the second place man. That's all he needs, with a stationary time presumed of about 8 seconds. I reckon he's going to come in sometime between that 40 and 45, and when he does, it's the same refuelling team that we had at the last race at the Nürburgring. Nigel Stepney, the chief mechanic, is back here, but he's not taking part in the pit stops.
Yeah, I had a word with Nigel Stepney, the English chief mechanic of Ferrari, who took on the responsibility of handling the nozzle end of the fuel rig, a very demanding job. And he's got a bit of binding around his leg, but he's perfectly all right otherwise. He's walking well and just getting the strength back, and that's good news.
Yes, there were a lot of people in the paddock very disappointed with that situation where Michael Schumacher ran over Stepney, because there's so many of us would like to run him over, and he beat us to it. But I'm only joking, because Stepney, he can be a bit abrasive, can Nigel, but he's a good guy, does a brilliant job for the Ferrari team. But I know they've got a few people to fill in for him, and it's really nice to see him back at the races.
So Michael Schumacher is on his 26th lap, 49 laps left if my mental arithmetic is correct, and he's continuing to stride away with this race. It's not so much a question of who wins, provided Michael Schumacher keeps going to his 5th victory at Monaco to match that of the great Graham Hill, as who's going to be second, because things could very well change, because we're getting to a situation now with Jarno Trulli, Coulthard, Frentzen, Häkkinen, Schumacher and Alesi, with only about 4 seconds between them on the track. And things are going to depend on the skill and the speed and the dexterity of their pit crews. When they come in with very hot engines, stop, up go the cars, and David Coulthard and, Mika Häkkinen having a look at Heinz-Harald Frentzen will have nothing of it. So there are the 4th, 5th and 6th men together, and Rubens Barrichello still down in that 8th place. He can't do anything about Jean Alesi. This race is going to depend in the end analysis on how good the pit crews are. I have no doubt about that at all. With 17 of the 22 starters left, that is Ralf Schumacher, and here is Frentzen, Häkkinen, Schumacher, Alesi, Barrichello in 8th position, Fisichella in 9th position. Look back, you just missed Jenny Irvine, who is still in 10th position. I say still, somehow or other, unseen by us, he's got ahead of Johnny Herbert.
Yes, Frentzen's made a slip going through Casino Square. We haven't seen it. It showed up on the computer. He's a half a second down on the first sector of this lap. So Frentzen the first to show any signs of slight cracking, but it wasn't enough of a mistake to let Häkkinen through. But Häkkinen certainly having a good look as he went into Mirabeau, wasn't it? I don't know if we'll get a replay. I don't know if the Monegasque director here will give us a replay of that, but certainly something happened to Frentzen up in Casino.
Well, we're looking now at Jacques Villeneuve in the Honda-powered BAR. He is in 15th position, pursued by his teammate Ricardo Zonta, racing at Monaco for the first time, and back again. Now, Zonta is last but one, and there you've just seen him exiting the pool, and here is Schumacher entering and now leaving it. So the gap between the first and the last on the track is getting smaller and smaller. Michael Schumacher is going to have a traffic problem soon. Are the Ferrari people going to bring him in? Well, it's lap 27 now. The earliest I would have expected him is round about lap 35. So we're going to be seeing Schumacher deal with traffic, which could give the others the opportunity to close up.
Yeah, they've got to get through too, but I think Michael's as good as any of them through the traffic, and they certainly won't be bringing him in early. There's absolutely no need. He's 26.2 seconds in the lead, but no need to change his strategy. That's absolutely for sure.
And as I was saying earlier on, getting that pole position is so important here. Schumacher got it. He got a superb start. He's had a clear track. Everybody else is fighting each other behind him. And and Heinz Harald Frentzen is looking a bit ragged there, or was, as he came round Sandervot, because Mika Häkkinen is pushing extremely hard.
Yeah, Frentzen there, he must be starting to lose the rear tyres. Maybe they're going over pressure a little bit, or certainly can be going off. The rubber compound breaking down a bit, but he's now surely struggling as Johnny Herbert is in for what must be an unscheduled stop. The mechanics are not ready, and he's not on his mark, so I would imagine Johnny's got some other kind of problem than needing a new set of tyres.
I thought, and I'm going to be very careful what I say, I thought I saw a puff of smoke from the back of Herbert's car when we were looking at it earlier on, which might have been a leaking oil pipe or something more serious. But they seem to be changing the wheels and getting him out again. But anyway, he slipped right back to the rear of the field.
Yes, Barrichello and Fisichella now beginning to home in on the back of Alesi. Rubens quickest in the warm-up this morning, as I said. I think he's going to be a bit disappointed that he's not really shown. He's got clear air in front of him, but he's lapping a second a lap slower than Michael Schumacher in the sister car. So Barrichello not having a storming race.
Yeah, I think Frentzen is the man with the biggest problem at the moment. He's nearly 4 seconds behind Coulthard, who is third, as Johnny Herbert exits the pits to rejoin the race. So obviously there was not an engine problem. I say Frentzen is now 4 seconds behind Coulthard, but he's holding up Häkkinen and Schumacher and Alesi, who are all within 3 seconds.
Now Johnny's about to be lapped, so he's going to have to yield quite quickly to the ferocious pack that's behind him. Trulli and Coulthard cleared the Herbert Jaguar as he was coming out of the pits, but Frentzen, Häkkinen and co are all going to arrive, and I think Johnny will that's Wirtz recovering himself back to the paddock, but Johnny will have to be pulling over, I think, and letting that little train through.
Second and third into the tunnel, the leader out of it and into the Rascasse, coming through to complete his 29th lap out of 78 as Jarno Trulli, David Coulthard, Jordan and McLaren, second and third, come towards the Tabac. Now Frentzen fourth, Häkkinen fifth, Schumacher sixth, Alesi seventh, Barrichello eighth, Fisichella ninth. Johnny Herbert has been lapped, and the gap between Fisichella and Eddie Irvine, who is 10th, is some 6 seconds.
Yes, Johnny obviously virtually parked somewhere and let them all through, so very sensible, very mature, as you'd expect from JH. But they're on their way, and it's just closing up all the time, isn't it? So Frentzen struggling with rear grip, as we know, and we're getting a little bit of a traffic jam there behind him. Coulthard now 5 seconds ahead of that little battle. You can see virtually the whole of the uphill section before they pop over the blind crest into Casino, where they are now, and Coulthard's going to be pretty fed up with the rear wing of that Jordan before he's finished the afternoon's event.
Yeah, but as you pointed out, Martin, there is sadly from his point of view absolutely nothing he can do about it, provided Jarno Trulli stays his ground, keeps cool, occupies the part of the track that David Coulthard would like to be in to get past him. It's the battle behind Frentzen with Häkkinen, Schumacher and Alesi that is interesting me most. We're looking at it now, and you can see that the Williams team have opted, like the rest of them, for the maximum downforce at this circuit. Downforce is everything. You've got to have grip and traction here, but Williams have gone for it a unique way by putting that high wing, and Fisichella has a look at Rubens Barrichello and fails to scramble through on the exit from the tunnel into the chicane. But nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Can you imagine being an Italian driver watching a Ferrari loom up on your nose as you're about to barge him out of the race, but the Prost going down the escape route? Is that Alesi or is that Heidfeld?
No, I think it's Alesi. in which case there was some sort of kerfuffle between Alesi, Barrichello and Fisichella there, although Alesi was a second or so ahead of the Ferrari. But it looks to me, yes, Rubens Barrichello is ahead of Jean Alesi. He's up into 7th position. He's got 4 seconds between himself and Ralf Schumacher. We'll soon see whether the Ferrari can make up that ground. Making up is one thing, getting past is quite another. And Mika Häkkinen is again pushing. He's just gone through the first sector, fastest of all, and you can see him right behind Heinz-Harald Frenzen's Jordan.
Yes, I think there's so much more pace in those McLarens than they're able to show at the moment, particularly now. In the early part of the race, I think it was nip and tuck with the Jordans, but right now I think both McLarens have got a lot of speed in their pockets and they just cannot use it, which is a shame for us and a shame for the race later on. Michael Schumacher now a new fastest lap, a 1:22.948. His lead is 28 seconds plus whatever these guys do, and that's Sauber with a bent left rear. That's obviously it's Diniz out of the race, and that's a tricky position to recover that car from. He's obviously hit the Saint-Devote barrier. That's effectively on the racing line. I don't think there's a crane that'll reach that far, is there, Murray? He's putting a strap.
No, I don't. I was just going to say the same thing, Martin.
He's putting a strap through the rollover hoop, look. So I just wonder if they may, if the crane will reach that far, it's easy to recover that car. But I would have thought that's stretching a little bit. You've seen the crane in action down at Saint-Devote many times, and the double wave yellows there, meaning Marshall's on track. I'm
wondering whether they're going to bring the safety car out, because that's a very dangerous place. I don't think there's a crane that'll reach it. There is a crane at Saint-Devote, and you can see how dangerous it is for the Marshalls, because they come round Saint-Devote at about 70 miles an hour.
I'd rather them than me. They've got to wheel that car backwards down the hill into the range of that crane, I would guess.
Well, it hasn't made any changes to the people at the front.
Safety car standing by, it says on the computer here. Safety car standing by, which means just about nothing really, except they're obviously considering. They'll see. Now remember, we've seen the bent wheel on that Sauber. We know it may not push very well. It's got 2 punctures, I think. So its underbelly will be on the deck. That may not be such an easy car to move, although the Marshals here tend to lift them up and throw a little trolley underneath. At least they've got gravity working with them to help get that Sauber of Dinitz's down the hill into the range of the crane. And meanwhile, Coulthard, as ever, pressing the back of
it's Charlie Whiting who is the race director, the English race director, who's got to make the very difficult decision about whether or not to bring out the safety car. Now, this is where it's gone off. You can see the blue flags waving there, which means that someone is behind you who wants to and is entitled to get past. But Charlie is sensibly, I think, deciding not to bring the safety car out at the present moment. That blue flag was being waved for Ricardo Zonta, who is down in 13th position. And there is
Villeneuve being lapped. Villeneuve being lapped by Michael Schumacher, so he's coming through third distance, just about, well, over third distance actually. But look at the McLaren right up tight behind Trulli there. It's Coulthard and Trulli.
And this is where, again, we'll see the supreme ability and racecraft of Michael Schumacher, because he has this ability that Senna had. I know I'm continually making comparisons between the two of them, because they're two of the greatest, of getting through traffic where others can't.
Yes, Trulli's been very cautious around the yellow flags, and that's enabled the pack to behind them to close up by 3 or 4 seconds, and Michael Schumacher now with a 31-second lead. So Trulli has been extra cautious through those yellow flags. James, what can you tell us?
Martin, we're not a million miles away from a Michael Schumacher pit stop, I don't think. He was getting through that gaggle, which included Verstappen, Diniz, Villeneuve, Zonta and Heidfeld. He's carving through them at the moment like a hot knife through butter. Verstappen's the next one in his sights, and I would reckon they're all very close together on the road, only about 3 or 4 seconds separating the whole 5 cars. Once he's through there, that's probably a pretty good time to be thinking about making his stop, and I wouldn't be at all surprised, as you were saying before, if McLaren didn't just bring in perhaps Häkkinen at roughly the same time to try and give him some sort of opportunity to make an impression on this motor race. But Ferrari's starting to look as though they're getting ready.
Well, we'll wait and see. Thank you, James. Lap 34 out of 78. Michael Schumacher leading by 31 seconds. Very close behind him. You're looking at it now. Trulli, Coulthard, then Frentzen and Häkkinen. In sixth position is still Ralph Schumacher, no changes from the start of the race. Rubens Barrichello has moved up to seventh position as a result of a Lacey going out. Fisichella's now up to 8th, Eddie Irvine to 9th, so the Jaguar is in the top 10. Michael Schumacher is not slowing at all. He's made yet another fastest lap, just 0.6 of a second off Mika Häkkinen's fastest lap time last year, a time of 1 minute 22.8. And as I said earlier on, I think he's now in a strong enough position to come in and make that stop and still get out in the lead, having taken on more fuel and fresh tyres and wheels. As we look at Johnny Herbert in the Jaguar, he's down in 15th position, he's been lapped. So have Jacques Villeneuve, who's 12th, Ricardo Zonta, who is 13th, Nick Heidfeld, who is in 14th position. And 15 are left out of the 22 who started, and there are going to be more retirements yet from this race, I forecast.
Welcome back. Well, Mika Häkkinen just a few seconds ago in trouble here in the tunnel, AJ.
Yeah, what happened there, I'm not sure, because he's just slowed down, but I can't see any visible means of trauma associated with it. So we'll wait and see. And here's Trulli.
Well, Trulli went from second. He suddenly slowed. Let's bring you up to date, because it's Schumacher, Coulthard, Frentzen, Schumacher, Barrichello and Fisichella. Now, he had some problems. Ralph Schumacher's just crashed seconds ago off that corner where there'd been an accident earlier race, and there was a lot of cement dust there. So a lot of things have happened. There's Schumacher getting under the fence. We'll go back to Murray, but it's all happened in the last minute and a half.
He's 37 seconds ahead of David Coulthard, who has got Heinz-Harald Frentzen about a second behind him in third place. Fourth was Ralph Schumacher, but it's now Rubens Barrichello. So two Ferraris in the top four, looking very good for Constructors' Championship points. And David Coulthard is now the fastest man on the track.
Yeah, we were right about that. It's just in 22.3. That's 6/10 faster than Michael Schumacher's best lap so far this afternoon. And that's the first time he's been released, basically, with some clear track ahead of him. You know, whack it in the barriers, David, because you're 36 seconds behind. It's going to be so difficult to put Schumacher on any kind of under any kind of pressure from so far behind, but he's got to do it. He's got to keep going, and it's probably easy to keep your concentration in that situation. But Coulthard now absolutely on a charge.
Yeah, David has taken so much stick in recent times in comparison with Mika Häkkinen, which I never thought was justified. He's about 38 Grand Prix less experience than the Finn, and that is over 2 years. And David always says, I'm still comparatively young, I've got a lot of experience now, I've got a lot to come, and I believe I can win the World Championship. I believe he can too. But Michael Schumacher, that we are looking at now, is on his 40th lap. He's still got to come in. No one has come in amongst the leaders for a fueling stop. We've had Mika Häkkinen in with a problem, we've had Johnny Herbert in, we've had Jarno Trulli come in to retire, and there are now just 14 people left of the 22 who started.
Something flicked out of the back of the Ferrari, but I would assume it's just debris that Michael Schumacher ran over as Coulthard does another new fastest lap of the race, some 1.8 seconds faster than Michael Schumacher, and the gap's beginning to come down, but it's still some 34 seconds.
And the thing that they all have to watch out for now, we have to watch out for, is very quick news from James Allen.
Yeah, very quickly. That's certainly added an edge to the afternoon as far as Ferrari are concerned. They're certainly sitting up and paying attention now. And as I say, Schumacher not a million miles away from stop. Some speculation just for you on the Häkkinen situation. We saw him lifting the top of the bodywork off when he came in. They seem to be looking at the brakes, particularly at the brake pedal, to see maybe there's some sort of problem with that.
Thanks, James. Well, I was saying that what they need to look out for now is debris on the track, because that debris will be carbon fibre. It breaks with a razor edge, and you've only got to get a little bit of it in a tyre carcass, and it can slice it and cause a puncture. So Michael Schumacher leading. There is David Coulthard, who's reduced the gap to 34 seconds. He's lapping now a second faster than Michael Schumacher, who has got this enormous cushion of 30 seconds. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen is dropping back in third position, with Rubens Barrichello in fourth place, catching the Jordan. It's all coming alight now, and Fisichella is in fifth position in the Benetton. He's lapping slower than Barrichello. Eddie Irvine is now in the points. I say that again, Eddie Irvine's Jaguar is in the points. His teammate Johnny Herbert is down in 13th position, having been lapped. And I know everybody in Britain and in many places all around the world who are Jaguar enthusiasts want to see the Leaping Cat do as well in Formula One as it did in World Sports Car Racing, and we'll be hoping that Eddie Irvine can stay there to get a first World Championship point for Jordan and the first for himself this year.
Don't be confused by Hakkinen there, back in more or less the pack he was running in. He's now a lap down after that lengthy stop. So Hakkinen, more or less, as I say, rejoining in his original position, but one lap down.
Yeah, and going extremely quickly. There's obviously nothing wrong mechanically with the car at the moment that affects his performance, because he's just gone through the first sector of the lap faster than anyone has been in the race. And Ralf Schumacher, whose face we saw contorted with pain when he took his helmet off, seems to have hurt his leg. He was limping as he went over the wall there, and when he subsequently took his helmet off, I could see that he was grimacing in pain.
Yes, what that's going to be, he's calling the marshal's overlook, so I've got a problem here. What's that going to be is a piece of wishbone's come into the monocoque, burst through the monocoque as the car hit the wall, and has pierced at least pierced the skin on his leg. Obviously hasn't broken his bone, otherwise he wouldn't be leaping over the barrier.
And that despondent face you saw was of the most experienced Grand Prix driver currently of them all, Jean Alesi, who loves Monaco, who adores the challenges that it gives a driver and responds to them so well, and was in 7th position but is now one of the 7 retirements.
New fastest lap of the race for Mika Hakkinen now, running in clear air, but he's too far adrift to do anything with it. He may still get some points. It's that kind of afternoon, and Michael Schumacher has had to seriously pick up his pace. Now he's got the news that Coulthard's been released, and off he goes. That's Irvine in for it's Herbert, sorry, it's Herbert in for his second stop of the afternoon, and he looks like he's still got problems, doesn't he? He's a very, very slow stop again there, 9.4. Actually, not too bad there for Johnny.
See the light flashing. The rear light has to flash, and the fuel filler cap has to stay up with the electronics to indicate that they are not organised in such a way that they can give you traction control.
Curious Johnny had to come in again, because obviously he had the unscheduled stop where you'd think they would have tanked it up. Maybe they didn't get fuel in when he came in last time around. Coulthard, a new fastest lap of the race now, a 1:22.1, but Michael Schumacher's down there on a 22.2, so Schumi really has picked his pace up. Coulthard has now dropped Frentzen by a full 7 seconds.
Now, the prophecy that we were making about it being a long time before anybody in this race amongst the leaders came in for a fuel stop has proved to be correct, because none of the first 10 have yet been in as the Ferrari surges past the arrows and down towards the hairpin. Michael Schumacher's on his 43rd lap now and has yet to come in. He came in on lap 42 last year, actually, but he's obviously staying out longer. He's 33 seconds ahead of Coulthard, a superb cushion. He's very comfortable indeed, provided he keep running, even though Coulthard is marginally quicker than he is at the moment. That's Jos Verstappen, who's in 11th place. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 3rd, but cannot cope with the now much faster David Coulthard, who has been released to go as quickly as he can. Rubens Barrichello, 4th position in the Ferrari, is catching Frentzen at the rate of about half a second a lap. 5th is Fisichella, 6th is Eddie Irvine still, and he's catching Fisichella's Benetton. 7th is Mika Salo, and just to complete the remaining runners, Villeneuve is 8th, Zonta is 9th, Heidfeld is 10th, Mika Hakkinen is 11th and has been lapped. Jos Verstappen is 12th, Johnny Herbert is in 13th position, all the rest have retired.
As Johnny is now 2 laps down, unfortunately, after his 2 pit stops. You're watching David Coulthard in 2nd place, now 7.6 seconds clear of Frentzen, but that time around Schumacher pegged him. They were just about identical in the low 1:22, so Schumacher's now responded and pegged Coulthard to a 33.5 second lead.
The danger, as you've heard from us, we're riding with Coulthard now through the chicane down towards the Tabac.
Yeah, the track gets fantastic grip in the second half of the race. You can see the tyre rubber that goes down, and you just get this wonderful traction, and the car really feels good. The track comes to you as the race goes on, and you really can't believe how easy it is to do 121s, 122s, when earlier on in the weekend a 26 or a 27 was frightening you silly, and the track just picks up so much grip.
Yeah, now David Coulthard obviously wants to win this race, of course, but he won't be too unhappy with second position. If he stays there, it will give him 6 World Championship points, which will move him ahead of Mika Häkkinen to second in the World Championship, behind Michael Schumacher, who will dramatically have extended his lead.
Yes, it looks pretty calm behind the wheel of Coulthard's McLaren there, but he did a new fastest lap of the race. You can now see for yourself a 1:21.9 and took 9/10 out of Schumacher's lead. So if he can carry that kind of pace, he can certainly keep Schumacher honest for the rest of the afternoon, Murray.
Yeah, and just as Michael Schumacher is looking like extending his World Championship lead, the same thing applies to Ferrari, who won the Constructors' Championship last year, are leading it this year by 10 points, but they've got both their drivers in the top 4. So that's 13 points potentially at the moment. 10 for Michael Schumacher, 3 for Rubens Barrichello, whereas McLaren have only got this man, David Coulthard, on a potential 6 World Championship points. So it's looking very, very strong, very good indeed for Ferrari, who have got so many Italian Tifosi fans here.
Michael Schumacher responding again, he also now in the 1:21.9s, as you saw on your screen. So,
and that is a faster lap than Mika Häkkinen last year. So as the fuel load is coming down and Michael Schumacher's concentration is maintained, if not intensified, he goes 4/10 of a second faster, and David Coulthard is faster again. He's just taken 2/10 of a second out of Michael Schumacher's lead, but since that lead is 32 seconds, nearly 33 seconds, Schumacher's very strong indeed. Verstappen again running across the chicane as we look at Ricardo Zonta now, chased by Nick Heidfeldt's Prost. Heidfeldt is in 10th position, looking for 9th position. Ricardo Zonta's first race here at Monaco, and David Coulthard continues to push on lap 46, 78 lap race, 32 still to go. As you say, Martin, if you're a driver, it must seem like going on forever.
Yes, it's such a shame. Coulthard's got a couple of cars to clear here, but it's such a shame he didn't get around truly earlier on, because I think we could have seen a great duel this afternoon between Schumacher and Coulthard. They're matching each other virtually identically. This lap's going to cost Coulthard some time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The blue flags are being waved for car number 15. Look, it's so slow around Raskas, and they both go into pits. That'll be a sigh of relief for Coulthard.
Yeah, he's lost time, but not nearly as much as he would have done if they'd kept going, because Heidfeldt was intent on getting past Zonta, and Zonta was intent on stopping him. They come in absolutely together now.
Yeah, it cost Coulthard 1.7 seconds that lap, so Schumacher now 34 seconds ahead again.
And we're on lap 47 as Heidfeldt gets away now. Is he going to stay in the same relative position against Ricardo Zonta? No, Zonta's away first. Heidfeldt gets through. So a very good stop by both teams. A better one by and that was where we've had the 2 offs already today. It's very sandy. It's probably oily underneath. There is Eddie Irvine coming towards us in the Jaguar in 6th position. He has now lapped Jos Verstappen's arrows as they go into Massenet and Casino Square together. Irvine is holding his position. He's 22 seconds ahead of the first man on the track who is not in the points, and that is Mika Salo. So, fingers crossed everywhere for Jaguar lovers, because Eddie Irvine is still there, still in the points as this race starts to run its course, with Michael Schumacher still to come in on lap 48 out of 78, 30 laps to go.
I think they're still working on Ralf Schumacher there with his cut leg, so they're stretching him away. Obviously quite a nasty cut there for Ralf.
And Formula One being what it is, motor racing being what it is, I can imagine there are probably people on the phone already to Frank Williams saying if Ralph Schumacher can't take part in the next race, which is the Canadian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time, and he's not looking too good there at the moment, I would be very happy to take his place. So fingers crossed too for Ralph Schumacher.
Yeah, familiar sight, isn't it? Unfortunately, a Schumacher being stretchered off, looking somewhat in pain with his leg. Obviously, brother Michael had that last year. I would have thought it was much more severe for Michael last year because Ralph was able to hobble over the wall. But still, nonetheless, must be a pretty nasty cut for them to have to take such dramatic action.
So we're looking at Rubens Barrichello now in the Ferrari, chasing Mika Häkkinen's McLaren. Now we're with David Coulthard, second position, 34 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. No sign yet of the Ferrari coming in. We can't see the pit lane very clearly from here. There's an enormous amount of pit furniture, but there are the Ferrari mechanics as I speak, waiting to bring somebody in. Now I think it must be Michael Schumacher, because there's no need to bring Barrichello in for traffic reasons. He's 2 seconds behind, 2.3 seconds behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Yes, getting the news that we think it is Schumacher. Barrichello's tucked up behind Häkkinen, who's trying to lap. So Barrichello has got a little bit of a traffic problem, but nonetheless, we think it'll be Schumacher they'll bring in first.
With a 33-second lead over the man you are watching now, David Coulthard from Twynham, Scotland. Here is Michael Schumacher. He's in the swimming pool section, in past the diver statue, round the left-hander, keeps bearing left, brakes hard on for the Ras Kass, which is about a 30-mile-an-hour corner. The mechanics are ready, the Ferrari mechanics are ready. Are you there, James? No, he's not. James?
Yeah, I'm here, Murray, and there's some scrub tyres going on for Michael Schumacher, and 52 kilos of fuel. Should take about 8.5 seconds stationary time in total. They're not rushing. A great stop by Ferrari. They've got it all perfectly right today.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher exits the pit lane at that mandatory 60 kilometres an hour. He's got the new style pit lane speed limiter working, and David Coulthard has not come through as I predicted. There is David Coulthard coming round into the so-called start and finish straight, which is actually a curve, and he's still in second place, but Michael Schumacher has retained his lead from some 33 seconds to some 11 seconds. So he's lost about 22 seconds as a result of coming in, slowing, stationary for just 7.7 seconds as they put in the fuel. And he's got new tyres on now, and his concentration will not be affected. He can see a 5th Monaco Grand Prix victory in sight now, provided he just keeps going, because David Coulthard has still got to stop. He is 13-14 seconds ahead of Frentzen, who's got Barrichello right behind him, and in the barrier there, I can't see whether it's Zonta or Villeneuve. It's Zonta. Ricardo Zonta has gone off at the same place as the others. It's obviously very slippery there. He's gone into the barrier on the left at Saint-Devote. There he is, away from the car, passing the broken Minardi. Well, he was in 10th position, so there are only 12 runners left now, with some 28 laps still to go. Now, last year, I've said it, but I'll repeat it, that only 8 cars finished. Retirements that we've had in order of retirement. De La Rosa really didn't start the race. There is Zonta's car being craned away.
I used to hate driving underneath that. You're putting so much faith in somebody else. Having tied that car up properly, and so often on a street circuit you drive underneath a craned car. Louise, what can you tell us?
Well, the driver's taking quite some time to make their way across the system of walkways and bridges back to the paddock, but Jenson Button is finally back here. Jenson looked like some kind of mechanical problem with the car.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the problem is exactly. They're looking into it, but the last 4 laps I had a few problems at acceleration. When I went on the accelerator, the engine just died, or something just died, so we're not sure what the problem is, but it's the end of my race.
Bit of a frustrating day all round, really.
Yeah, I think the only good thing I've got out of it is a bit of exercise, running back to the pits, but there you go. I think it's my first experience of Monaco, and hopefully the rest will be better.
I know you're desperate for a drink. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
As Eddie Irvine exits the pit lane He came in 6th position, and Mika Salo has just gone through as I speak. So you just saw a flash of the Sauber going past there. So Mika Salo in the Sauber is up into the points. He's been there once already this season at the San Marino Grand Prix, but this is the battle on the circuit. It is Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 3rd position in the yellow Jordan, pursued by Rubens Barrichello, who is looking to get onto the podium to make it not 1 but 2 Ferrari drivers up there. And Barrichello urgently needs those points to improve his World Championship point position. He's in 4th position in the championship at the moment, and he is lapping about 0.4 of a second faster with Mika Häkkinen in the background, but he's been lapped, don't forget.
As Michael not particularly fast since he put new tyres on and fuel on board to go through to the end of the 78 lapper. We're on lap 52, but he was 1.3 seconds slower. There's Fisichella makes his first and probably only stop of the afternoon from 5th place. Look at the brake dust as the air guns, the pressurised compressed air guns just disperse the whole lot of it, and Fisichella back out at 60 k's as ever. It's special, the drivers ask for this place to be slower than anywhere else because it is so dangerous, and nobody's disadvantaged that way.
So, lap 52, Michael Schumacher leads and has stopped. David Coulthard second and has not stopped. Frentzen and Barrichello that you are looking at having a big battle for 3rd position, for the second podium position. And behind them is Fisichella, who you've just seen come in from his pit stop. Mika Salo is up into the points as a result of Eddie Irvine stopping. But I think Irvine will retake that position, provided the Jaguar keeps going as well as it has been doing, when Mika Salo himself comes in. 12 runners left. One of them is still Johnny Herbert, who has been lapped twice. Everybody up to 7th position, that is Eddie Irvine, has been lapped as coming towards us up the hill. Heinz-Harald Frentzen 3rd, Rubens Barrichello 4th. Off goes a tear-off visor strip from Heinz-Harald Frentzen's helmet. He's obviously got it fogged up or perhaps some oil on it. And Rubens Barrichello really pushing with Louise Goodman, with Jarno Trulli.
That's right, Murray. The retiree's arriving back thick and fast now. Jarno, I understand it was a mechanical problem with the car. Gearbox, is that right?
Yes, it's right. We don't know if it's a mechanical or electronic problem, but it's a gearbox.
Such a disappointment for you.
Yeah, it's right, for me and also for the team. I mean, the 2nd position was pretty easy to keep because luckily my car was perfect. I didn't push very much because I was on one stop very long first thing, so I was taking care of the tires and tried to keep away David, and as soon as David was closing the gap, I was pushing away, pulling away easily.
Bad lad.
Yeah, interesting there. He says he was on a very long first stint. Presumably that's Barrichello's stop for Ferrari. Mechanics are getting ready for. So I'm sure that tells us something about Frentzen too, and that he is going to be on a long stint. But no, Frentzen coming in the pits. Jordan have either decided to do that or responded to the Ferrari mechanics coming out into the pit lane to make sure they can try and keep their man with track position.
Now, can Rubens Barrichello, as a result of help from the Ferrari mechanics, get his place ahead of...
Oh.
Yeah, no! Frentzen gets out ahead in the pit lane, ahead of Rubens Barrichello, so there is no change in terms of track position. The question is, has Fisichella has not gone through. Is that the Benetton? No, it's not. It was the Jaguar coming through, the Jaguar of Johnny Herbert, who has now unlapped himself from those two, but not from race leader Michael Schumacher. Lap 53 then.
Now, Barrichello knows this is his best chance to leapfrog that Jordan while they're on cold tires, while there's a certain amount of unknown, and he's just not close enough to have a look up the inside into Mirabeau. Frentzen is a pretty wise hand as well, but this is surely his best chance to catch Frentzen unawares somewhere.
Well, Barrichello's had a 2nd this year, he's had a 3rd this year, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen has just had a 3rd place, so they'll both be pretty anxious to have that position. And then David Coulthard is now really pushing, but he's still got to come in. He's done the fastest lap of the race, a second quicker than Michael Schumacher, but don't forget that Schumacher on his 55th lap has had his sole stop. David Coulthard, who is 4 seconds behind him now, has still got to come in. He's the only one of the top 7 who has not yet stopped.
Yes, Coulthard must now have, we're not seeing it, but he must now have Schumacher in sight. But as you rightly say, he's a full pit stop behind. We know that to be about 22 seconds. Coulthard's stop should be shorter than anybody's because he's going the furthest, so he needs less fuel to get to the end of the race. But certainly, as the tread has gone off the tyres and the fuel load is down, Coulthard's got a very fast motor car underneath him.
Now, the only real race in terms of position at the present moment is that between Frentzen and Barrichello that we've been looking at, who came into the pits together and left together, because Schumacher is effectively a long way ahead of David Coulthard. You can see them virtually together on the track now as Coulthard's second comes into the Rascasse, which Michael Schumacher has just exited. But I say again, there is a... And Schumacher's in trouble! Schumacher's in trouble! Front wheel off the ground! Has he got a puncture? And it's happened at the very worst place that it could possibly happen, because he's only just past the pits. He's got to do a whole lap like this. Now, you remember what I said earlier on about carbon fibre stuff getting into the tyres? Maybe that's happened.
No, I don't think he's got a puncture. I think he's got a... Well, we'll have to wait and see, but I thought it looked more like a suspension failure than a puncture. I think he's got a suspension failure there, Murray. He's going to be out of the race with that one.
Yes, indeed he is, and in which case David Coulthard will take the lead, with Frentzen in second position and Barrichello in third. But first, we've got to see what happens in this really dramatic development to Michael Schumacher, who's on his 56th lap. I say it's happened at the very worst place, because even if it's a puncture, which is the least of his problems, he's still got to do a whole lap, probably with the back of his car dragging on the ground by the time he gets in. If it's a broken suspension, he will be out of the Monaco Grand Prix.
Well, I'm hearing from the pits they're getting a suspension arm ready to go on to Schumacher's car, but that's going to take some time. Yeah, I mean, he held it well. I think he's got a left rear suspension failure that puts the right front up in the air like that. I don't think he had a flat tyre, and I'm almost certain that Schumi's got a damaged rear suspension, so that's going to take them 3 or 4 minutes, I would have thought. And now they've chosen to make Coulthard stop at that point.
Lovely bit of quick thinking by the McLaren team. Will bring David in for his sole pit stop. He was 43 seconds ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, so there's going to be no problem in terms of David Coulthard losing what looks like is going very shortly to be the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix, with Heinz-Harald Frentzen moving up into second position.